Good day, folks. Everything new under the sun. This is breaking news from War News 247 out of Ukraine. Apparently, there's a bit of a panic going on at the stores in Kiev as people are going to pharmacies and buying potassium iodide in the event for the event of a nuclear dirty bomb of some sort or an imminent nuclear explosion. So why are they doing that? Well, President of Ukraine Zelensky, together with the Minister of Internal Affairs and the Minister of Health, issued instructions in the event of a nuclear explosion. Looks like they're getting the public ready for some sort of nuclear event, dirty bomb, strategic strike, whatever it may be, and announced the implementation of exercises to evacuate areas and measure radioactivity. So they're getting ready for this. I don't know if this has any relation to, what their intelligence suggests that Russia is going to do next. And so no one really knows where the truth is. And, both sides are going to spread misinformation, and both sides are going to use whatever happens to their advantage. Certainly, if there is a nuclear explosion, the advantage would be for Ukraine because it would interest NATO and it would pull NATO into the war. I don't know that Russia has any interest right now in a nuclear explosion. They seem to be addressing the Ukrainian counteroffensive, and we're going to talk about that in a second. They seem to be addressing it with ease. They don't need nuclear weapons. They're destroying all the armor, if you believe the images and photos and videos that you find on Rumble and RT.com. And of course, that's Russian propaganda. And of course, anything on the Western side is Western propaganda. But it says Zelensky issued the third warning in 10 days of an imminent nuclear explosion. Right there. That's where we're looking. But this time it escalated dangerously, spreading panic among the Ukrainian people. It is clear that the countdown to a nuclear accident has begun, says this article. And that's interesting. Are they gearing up the public? Are they getting them ready mentally for something that maybe the Ukrainians will use to their advantage? All of this to me sounds like Ukraine is going to trigger something or going to cause something, or there's going to be a false flag of some sort to draw NATO in, because the counteroffensive doesn't seem to be going very fast. And we have all this information about the Zaporizhia nuclear plant, that it's mined all about. IAEA isn't in there, etc. The Russians claim that the target will be the Zaporizhia nuclear plant. So the Russians are claiming this. In order to force the Russian army to withdraw its forces, at the same time, Kiev will be able to provoke foreign military intervention. It is the intervention vehicle of NATO. So the citizens of Kiev are heading into the pharmacies. Not a bottle of potassium iodide was left. They're buying it en masse. By the way, if you see something happening like the toilet paper catastrophe, at the start of the pandemic, if you hear people starting to do that, it could be a good time to get out and get that yourself. Not because you want to cause more trouble in the supply and demand, but if people do panic, then you're certainly not going to get anything. So if you hear of this, may be a good indication to get something done and be prepared before the masses hear about this, before mainstream starts making reporting on this sort of stuff. And so it's always good to be prepared prior to an event. And if the government tells you to be calm, that's probably a good indication that you should be not uncalm, not getting worried about things, but getting prepared. When the government says, "Don't worry, don't do anything, everything is awesome," that's when you should be looking at the media, looking at the news, and deciding, okay, if this thing does go down, whatever they're saying is not going to go down, then what would I need? And go out and get that. And in the beginning of the pandemic, it was hand sanitizer and toilet paper and all these things. And so preempt the crowd, I will suggest. So potassium iodide is actually a substance that blocks the absorption of radioactive iodine by the thyroid gland, thus providing protection, it says. It goes on, it talks about the price of it. But yeah, pharmacies overrun by people getting nuclear potassium iodide to prevent against or to limit at least the effects of nuclear fallout, a dirty bomb, etc. So, pharmacies being emptied. Zelensky announced a potential imminent nuclear explosion. All right, so what's happening on RT.com? Well, from the other side of, again, this is kind of well, I don't know. This is War News 247. It's hard to say what side of the news this is on. But if we go to Russia Today and consider that that this is Russian propaganda, here is Ukraine. Ukraine could get nukes in the near future, ex-Zelensky said. So Russia is reporting that an ex-Zelensky aide says that they're going to get nukes. Kiev may produce its own weapons in the event of a Russian nuclear strike, says Ereshtovich. So there you go. Both sides are saying the other one is going to do something. The other one has nuclear weapons, etc. Of course, we know Russia does. We don't know if Ukraine does. But that's apparently coming out of Russia. And this counteroffensive, it started, right? You tell me in the comments, has the counteroffensive started? Well, according to a Ukrainian commander, well, no. The real counteroffensive hasn't actually started. This has all been 4D chess. They've been doing small little offensives to make Russia think that the counteroffensive has started, but it hasn't yet. Maybe the start of a counteroffensive would occur, when some side, I don't know which, deploys a nuclear dirty bomb, or there's a nuclear emergency at Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. Maybe one side would use that to their advantage and escalate and use that as to cover other actions or to make an excuse for other actions, right? So that's interesting. The counteroffensive hasn't yet begun. So the counteroffensive hasn't begun yet, but apparently Kiev is already blaming the West for the failure of the counteroffensive. So the counteroffensive hasn't begun yet. This is from June 23rd. Yet to begin. But Kiev is blaming the West for the counteroffensive failures. Western hesitancy to send more arms cost Ukrainian military valuable time and aid to Zelensky is claimed. So nobody knows what's happening. Nobody knows what the truth is. The likely truth is that they started a counteroffensive. It's not going very well. And there will be more waves of counteroffensive, but effectively it has started, but that there may be more to it. And maybe that's why they're saying, well, maybe the real counteroffensive hasn't began. Remember, this is Russia, Russia Today, RT.com. So what are they trying to get across to you, the reader, probably the Western reader, because this is the English format of it. What are they trying to tell you through this in terms of propaganda narrative that they want to get across? So interesting. Now, this is an aside. RT, again, is Russia adding to the case that maybe Ukraine is trying to create a dirty bomb? Well, smugglers of radioactive isotope busted. The FSB, a group allegedly offered $3.5 million for a kilogram of cesium-137, which buyers wanted to use later to later frame Russia in Ukraine. So, is there a covert operation here, a false flag going to be done? Is that why Zelensky is coming out and saying there's imminent nuclear explosion coming because they're working on something secret? I don't know, folks. I'll be honest with you. Right now, it seems like, if I were to call it, and I'm getting propaganda on both sides, I'm getting disinformation, misinformation on both sides, to use the new terminology in this day and age. And you don't know what's true. But certainly it seems like Ukraine is desperate. NATO has not gotten into the war yet, and I don't think they want to. But would this draw NATO in? It very possibly would draw them in. So kind of an urgent update. A lot of things. You need to read both sides of the news. Western propaganda and, Russian or the propaganda from the other side, Chinese, whatever it may be. And the truth is always somewhere in the middle. And that's the wisdom, if you can call that wisdom, if you can call that a good way to think about things. That there will always be a grain of truth in each of these articles. Zelensky may be correct that there is an imminent nuclear explosion. What may be between the lines is maybe that their side is looking to put it in place to frame Russia. Likewise, on the Russian side, Russia may be, having all these stories about Ukrainian aid saying that they want to get a nuke and such, and that their FSB has captured people who were looking for radioactive material in an effort to provide plausible deniability in the event of a dirty bomb strike by maybe Russian forces or the Russian side of things in Ukraine. So nobody knows. We have no idea. It's going to be like Nord Stream, where we won't know for months and months and years, and after that we may still not know, because both sides may be silent about the true information about what's happening. So you need to be prepared. Do you have some potassium iodide? Do you have other ways to prevent against a nuclear dirty bomb? In the Western world, we don't have that much fear. We don't even have bomb shelters here. So the fear of this isn't too great, but you need to consider it. Nuclear radiation pills are generally attainable on Amazon, online. And, would it be worth it to have some of that? Would it be worth it to maybe have some kelp if you live on the seaside, which has high amounts of iodine in it? Something I can't recommend that, but something you need to look into. Local sources, natural sources of iodine, and maybe in pill form as well. So just one of those other things to have in your preparations, because you never know what's going to come upon us. We never know. And that's the thing with prepping. You want to hedge all bets. You have all sorts of different options. You have solar, you have gasoline-powered generators, because you don't know if maybe the solar won't work when something happens. Maybe the generator isn't going to work when something happens. And then you maybe have firewood, and you have to back up if your furnace doesn't work. You have backups upon backups and alternative options. Communications. Do you have a cell phone? I actually don't have a cell phone, but we have at least one in our family anyways. That might work in a catastrophe situation, in a natural disaster situation, but it may not. Do you have family radio service walkie-talkies? Do you have ham radio, amateur radio? Any one of these may all be down in a comms down situation, but on the other hand, maybe one of them may be up for a little while, or maybe one of them will work locally and will ease communications locally. So you need to be prepared for all cases and have countermeasures for as many potential things as you can. And that's hard to do. That does cost money, but there are cheap and easy ways to do a lot of things as well. So thanks for watching. I'll leave it there. We'll see you in the next video.